Kia ora students, you love business studies, but there's a problem, writing. It's kind of difficult. Getting the structure right in an exam, not so easy either. Sometimes students don't really know what the descriptors are telling them to write. So I thought today I would go through writing in Level 2 business studies so that you can get an idea of what is what. These are the descriptors for Level 2 business studies. An explain level descriptor is achieved. If it asks you to fully explain, that's merit, and if it asks you to justify, that is excellence. Now, note that excellence actually involves both fully explain and justify, so you need to be able to do both of those in order to be able to get an excellence grade. I thought we would look at a sample question so you could have some examples when I go through the descriptors in this video. This question is loosely based on the 2020 2.1 examination paper. So if you want to have a practice at a bigger question or see it in context, you can have a look there. You can see that the first part says, identify a possible organizational structure. Now that's just a state level question if you did Year 11 business studies. That's actually not worth anything, not even achieved. So that's just for the marker to know what you're doing. I'm going to use a functional structure in this video. The next part we're more interested in, it says fully explain one advantage that this organizational structure may have for the business. That fully explain includes both explain and fully explain parts. So I'll show you what it looks like at both of those levels. Finally, justify whether this organizational structure is better suited to the business than another organizational structure for achieving effective communication and decision making. So we'll have a look at that as well. Okay, so here's explain. Explain means state your answer and say why or how that is the answer. So if I was to go back here and look at this one and just explain one advantage that this organizational structure may have for the business, then I would say one advantage of a functional organizational structure is that the business is divided into functional departments. So at that point, I've stated my answer. This is an advantage of that structure that I've chosen, bearing in mind that I've chosen a functional structure in this case. Then I've got to say, well, why or how is that an advantage? Because the question is asking me to give an advantage. So here's the advantage. Then in green, I'm going to say this is how or why it's an advantage. So this is an advantage for XYZ Limited, the business I've made up, because employees become specialized or experts in their areas. So I've said now this is why dividing them into functional departments is an advantage. If we were to go on and do what the question actually asks, fully explain, then we would learn that a fully explained answer asks us to do the following. It asks us to explain, so state the answer and say why or how. Then it says give the impacts or effects of this for either the business or a relevant stakeholder, depending on the question. In our case, it wants us to give the effects on the business. So I'm going to have the same answer, and then in purple, you see I've done the extra fully explained part, the effects. So read this like thus. One advantage of a functional organizational structure is that the business is divided into functional departments. I've stated my answer. This is an advantage for XYZ Limited because employees become specialized or experts in their areas. I've explained why that's my answer, why it's an advantage. Finally, to fully explain, I'll give effects. This will lead to improved performance through higher quality products or service and increased efficiency. Therefore, XYZ Limited will benefit from greater sales levels and a higher or larger profit margin. So what I've done is I've stated my answer, said how or why, then I've given the effects of that advantage. Okay, so the fact that we're divided into functional departments means that we're going to have these effects: improved performance through quality products and service, and increased efficiency, and that'll benefit from greater sales levels and a larger profit margin. Notice that I've given two parts here. Okay, there's two sentences, and the markers often want that. They don't want me just to give sort of this part to here to before I put therefore. They want sort of like two steps in that effects or impacts process. Okay. Now, something to help you get that right is this method here to fully explain, state BLT. So you state your answer, then you go because leads to therefore. Now, if I bring up my answer again, you can see that I've done that, right? I've stated my answer here. Then I said this is an advantage for XYZ Limited because, and that got me to the explained part. And I said this will lead to this, therefore this will happen. Okay, so that's how I make sure I've done everything I need to, and I've got those two kind of steps in my effect or impact. That structure usually helps me. Hopefully it helps you as well. So that will get you to merit level by doing that. But if we go back to our question, we will remember that there's also this part here, this justify part. Sometimes it'll say justify something, sometimes it'll say provide a justified conclusion. It's all the same thing. It says justify whether this organizational structure is better suited to the business than another organizational structure for achieving effective communication and decision making. So I've got to say, is this better than another one with regard to effective communication and decision making? Now, what I'm going to teach you is actually the level 3 approach to this, because it only includes one small extra step that you might as well learn now. Anyway, here's justify. Justify with relevant evidence the significance of the decision or the likelihood of success. This should include reference to an alternate course of action or alternate courses of action or new information to further support the decision that has not already been established in earlier parts of the question. So that's quite a mouthful. You've got to say whether this is significant, whether it's likely to be successful. You've got to include reference to an alternate course of action or new information. There's quite a lot going on. So justify is an excellence level skill. That means that there isn't just like a one-size-fits-all approach. So I can't give you the same kind of answer structure necessarily that'll work every time. But I can give you the structure that I tend to normally use and seems to work in most cases for me. So this is that structure. Now, remember I said this is the level 3 structure. You don't actually need step 3 at level 2, but I'm going to give it to you now anyway, because you might as well learn it, and then you're ready for level 3. So, first thing you want to do is answer the question. So that might be like which solution is better, or whether it's effective or not effective. In our case, we've got to say whether our structure is better than another one. So yes, it is, or no, it's not. Then step 2, you've got to use new information. That means information that you haven't already used in the question. And typically where you're going to get that information is from the case in the examination. So that'll either be in those little boxes in the exam. Those boxes will have information about the business and what's going on for them. Or if you're doing the 2.3 standards, that will be in the resource booklet that you get given. So you use new information that you've not already used to explain why you're correct. Okay, so why is this a better solution than the other one in our case? Or it might be like, why is it effective or not effective? Step 3 is you've got to reference the other option. Okay, so when you're saying why this is correct, say why it's correct, in this case, why it's a better solution, better than the other one. So it does this thing that the other one doesn't do, or it does it better than the other one for this reason. And then finally, I like to give the effects of this for the business, just one sort of effect, just to say, hey, this is going to be the outcome that happens here. So let's look at it in context of our question. I might say a functional structure is better suited for XYZ Limited for achieving effective communication and decision making. I've answered the question. It said, is the one you're given better, or is the other one better with regard to communication and decision making? I've said, hey, this one's better for that. And then I've got to say, well, why is that the case with new information? So step 2. It is better suited as specialist branch managers would be divided into their own branch or functional department, allowing for direct communication and decision-making about their branch areas. So it's better suited because they would be divided into their own branch. Okay, and that means they can have direct communication and they can have direct decision-making. So that's the new information. I've not talked about that already in my answer, so I'm bringing that in now that they're divided into these branches. Step 3, I've got to reference the other structure or the other option. In this case, if you look at the 2020 exam, they were already in a shamrock structure, so I've just chosen that. A shamrock structure does not allow this, and the owners have to communicate with and involve all staff in decision making, slowing it down. So I've said, this is what's new and good about my option, and this is why it's better than the other option, because the other option doesn't allow for that. So I've referenced and compared it to the other option. Finally, step 4. Overall, this will make the business more flexible in responding to individual branch needs and able to target those needs better, improving efficiency and quality of service offered. So I've just given an effect of this kind of thing that I said back in step 2, of this reason it's good, just to sort of round out my answer. So that's how I would justify that question. If you have any questions about that, feel free to ask your teachers or put some comments down in the doobly-doo below. I'll also put down there the 2020 examination paper in case you would like to have a look at it. Until next time, good luck.